All right, you guys. Jeffrey Epstein equals toe tag. That's apparently the message that a journalist received when he began investigating Jeffrey Epstein back in the 90s. I'm going to tell you all about that. And maybe that's the real reason why President Donald Trump is really scared. That's what a guy was informed. And we're starting to look around, looking at the narrative, and something is not adding up. So what we have to do is we have to go backward, okay? We absolutely have to jump back into the 90s to really understand the full Epstein story. So let's do that. Welcome back to the Epstein Files. All right, you guys, I am very sorry that we dropped this series out of nowhere. I was kind of getting sued by the sitting president of France, so I got a little bit distracted. Anyway, where were we? Okay, where are we right now as a society is maybe a better question. We keep discussing this theme that I want to drill into your mind, this idea of the Midas touch, okay? People who just have an invisible hand, a hand of wealth and power that pulls them through the ranks while the rest of us are working hard, really trying to get A's, get into school, make sure we get a good job, pay down our debts. Other people are just having resumes created for them. They can be really dumb, actually, and still be allowed to become, I don't know, like the president of France or whatever. They're effectively just trained actors and actresses. We know that Emmanuel Macron was allegedly that individual. Jeffrey Epstein, we learned, was also this individual, right? Dalton School, pulled through the ranks, no background whatsoever in math or physics, but we're just told he was some sort of a savant. And of course, he didn't, or at least nobody can explain how he made billions of dollars, especially given the fact that he wasn't a genius. And he certainly didn't have the credentials to be in the rooms that he was in. But yeah, someone pulled him through and up the ranks. We've got to go back to the 90s, I told you guys. So let's go back to May, specifically, of 1997 in the United States. Where were you? Where were you? Because a lot was going on in 1997 in the United States. I had just turned 8 years old. And there was this really interesting thing that happened that you likely do not remember. Honestly, it was more of a crisis that happened. The NSA, right, had intercepted this really mysterious communication between an agent that was at the Israeli embassy and the head of the Mossad, this guy, Dan Yatam, okay? So they intercept this communication between the two of them, and the NSA, our security agency, begins freaking out. And that's because the agent told Dan that the Israeli ambassador, a guy named Eliyahu Ben Elisar, was looking for a copy of a letter. Like, he wants a copy of a letter that the then Secretary of State, Warren Christopher, had apparently delivered to Yasser Arafat. Now, Yasser Arafat used to be the president of Palestine, okay? And so Israel's looking to intercept that communication. Like, what's the Secretary of State saying to Arafat? And this, by the way, was the day after Bibi Netanyahu and Arafat had signed what came to be known as the Hebron Accord, okay? I'm going to tell you about that in a second. So again, we have ourselves in the midst of this Israel-Palestine situation. But look, they came to an agreement. What's got Israel so stressed, right? Well, why are you so stressed that you're now trying to get in the middle of this communication between the White House and the Palestinian leader at the time? Now, according to the Washington Post, the exact language of that communication, and obviously we're translating this from Hebrew, was, quote, "The ambassador wants me to go to Maga." I want you to remember that, Maga, to get a copy of that letter. The Mossad head, Dan, then replied, "That's not why we use Maga." Instantly panic, as you can imagine, because that's a code name, Maga. Who the heck is Maga? What are they talking about? There's a Maga that can intercept communications. Also, why are they trying to use Maga to intercept, again, a communication between the White House and Yasser Arafat after a peace deal? Does that make any sense? Oh, yeah, it actually does make some sense, because those peace deal negotiations included a little bit of, come on, it's Israel, blackmail, obviously. I think I told you this, but I'm going to quickly recap. The story goes that Israel and Palestine were negotiating. Essentially, Israel had, as they always do, troops in Palestine, particularly this time they were in the West Bank, and they were negotiating pulling those troops out of the West Bank, okay? And Bill Clinton was hosting these negotiations in Maryland, and things were getting pretty heated between Arafat, Bill Clinton's, I'm the president of the United States, I've got power, here's what's going to happen. Bibi Netanyahu's like, what do you mean? We own the world. And it's just not looking good, okay? At least back when Palestine existed. He was the president of Palestine, Arafat. Anyways, Bibi Netanyahu, during these negotiations, takes Bill Clinton, the president of the United States, aside, and he asks him for the release of Jonathan Pollard, somebody that was also doing blackmail for Israel in the United States and was sentenced for getting caught assisting a foreign government. And what Bibi Netanyahu says to Bill Clinton when he pulls him aside, he's like, hey, don't worry, my friend. I just want to let you know that we have recordings between you and Monica Lewinsky, but we're going to throw them out. Wink. Could you imagine? President of the United States, if you've got power, your greatest ally takes you aside, and he's sort of like, hey, I just want to let you know, we've got some recordings of you. They're a little frisky. You and an intern, it's a little frisky, but I'm your friend, and we're going to throw them out. Yeah, that's what went down. At least if the author, Dan Halper, is to be believed, that's how it all went down. And yeah, Bill Clinton, you can imagine, got the message. So it wasn't exactly a peaceful negotiation. It was probably more aptly described as a hostage situation. And Israel might have been feeling a little bit paranoid about what the White House was then sending in a letter to Palestinian reps following that sit-down. Remarkably, though, the FBI's investigation, the NSA's investigation to identify who this Mega was, a mole, apparently, at the highest levels of the White House, a mole that had access to President Bill Clinton and his immediate entourage, maybe even a member of his immediate entourage, suddenly they weren't interested in finding out who he was. The entire thing, the investigation, was quickly halted without any official explanation as to why that was. Now, 2 years later, author Gordon Thomas would explain the real reason why they stopped looking into Mega. He wrote this book, Gideon Spies, and in that book, he explains that the Israelis then just further threatened the Clinton administration. They threatened to release the tapes of the communications between Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, and Monica Lewinsky if the hunt for Mega, codename Mega, did not stop. And once again, that was all it took. No more was heard about codename Mega anymore. Now, just a year after this NSA panic, in May of 1998, the Wall Street Journal publishes a very interesting article. It was published by journalist Lisa Miller, and it was titled, "Titans of Industry Join Forces to Work with Jewish Philanthropy." And it revealed in that article that there was a group coming together that was called the Mega Group, which was a private club of Jewish billionaires that were paying $30,000 annually towards this exclusive membership, and that would be meeting in secret twice a year. And what their goal was, as displayed in that article, their goal was, quote, to achieve maximum impact on American policy toward Israel. Okay. Now, in 2001, an Israeli journalist named Israel Shamir revealed more about that exclusive group. He had this newsletter, and he mentioned that within the Mega Group, there was also indeed an individual that went by codename Mega. And this is what he wrote. He wrote, quote, "The president of the World Jewish Congress invited the 50 richest and most influential American Jews to a meeting in Manhattan. There was no press coverage, no neon lights, just a few lines in the newspapers. They agreed to launch a public relations program under the Orwellian code name Emet, which is truth in Hebrew, with the aim of influencing American public opinion regarding Israeli policy. These super rich call themselves the Mega Group. This name emerged 2 years ago as that of an Israeli mole at the highest levels of the American establishment. The espionage specialists were wrong. Mega was not an agent. He was the boss. Much more than the cabal forces, Maga is moving the needle in the Middle East. And it's not magic, it's money, lots of money. They don't run the United States or Israel, but they wield powerful influence. About that 50 multi-billionaires united in a single network represent a real force in the world, he concluded. Now, it becomes even more interesting when you learn that the Maga Group was founded by two men. One of those men was Edgar Bronfman. For those of you who have not watched the beginning of this Jeffrey Epstein series, please go back, watch episode 1. Briefly to recap, Edgar Bronfman, that name keeps coming up. He was the guy that Epstein worked with on a mysterious bank transaction that got flagged by the SEC before the banking company went under. Bronfman was also the man that we learned was the president of the World Jewish Congress and was working with Robert Maxwell to negotiate refusnik. Essentially, they were trying to get Russian Jews, trying to get the Russian government to allow Russian Jews to emigrate to Israel and live. So it was called the refusnik crisis because at first the Russian government was refusing to do it. And then suddenly said, okay, fine, you can go to Israel. Probably a lot of money that made that happen. Anyways, back to the Maga Group. The other co-founder of that group was Les Wexner. Yes, Les Wexner. The key to Epstein's fortune. We know about Les Wexner. Which brings me back to Monica Lewinsky, the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Some details that maybe fell through the cracks, because what do you even remember about that scandal? Me personally, there are moments that are just kind of seared into your memory in the 90s or seared into your mind as your parents all huddled over a big screen TV. Definitively, the Monica Lewinsky scandal ranks pretty high. Like that's the O.J. Simpson trial. Monica Lewinsky scandal was like back-to-back news, and you just had parents that were just staring. Just what is going to happen with Bill Clinton? What is happening here? The cigar involved. This is crazy, right? And then at some point, I remember her kind of being reintroduced and us being told that everything kind of happened to her was unfair. She also had to sit down and provide testimony during that time about what had happened to her. I think we have a clip of that. Skylar, do you want to run that?
Did he make any representation to you about what you could say in that affidavit?
No.
What did you understand you would be saying in that affidavit to avoid testifying?
I believe I testified to this in the grand jury. In the best of my recollection, it was, to my mind, it was a range of things. I mean, it could either be something innocuous or could go as far as having to deny the relationship. Not being a lawyer nor having gone to law school was, I thought it could be anything.
Did he, at that point, suggest one version or the other version?
No, I didn't even mention that. So there wasn't a further discussion. There was no discussion of what would be in an affidavit.
Again, that's just showing you a random sample of her testifying. She had to testify during the impeachment hearings, obviously. And you see she's very presentable. She's well-spoken. There's a circus surrounding her, but she's composed. She is believable. She seems honest about what has taken place. And now, like I said, she's reemerged something, I would say, of a feminist icon. People look back and they go, wow, this poor intern. Everyone hated her because they loved Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a very loved president, left and right. He was the cool president. Then you have this intern, and maybe in the 90s we were too harsh on women, and people looked at her like she was a hoe, right? And people are revisiting going, that is just really not fair. I vaguely remember thinking, okay, then she went overseas and kind of hid. Her whole life was ruined by this scandal, which makes sense why she's kind of resurfacing. And Skylar, weren't you telling me that she even has her own podcast? Yeah, show me a little bit, like, what's the name of the podcast? It's kind of about like her coming back, right? Like it's Reclaiming. What a good brand. What a good name, Reclaiming with Monica Lewinsky. You know you feel that right now. You're watching this and you're like, oh girl, yes, reclaim your name. Reclaim your name, Monica. How'd they did you so dirty? That's not fair to you. And to really show how much they put behind this kind of reclaiming campaign. she recently sat down on the Call Her Daddy podcast. And that's appropriate, obviously, because the Call Her Dad podcast is all about women and having sex and tons of partners and being, powerful in their sex capades. Anyways, here's a clip of Monica Lewinsky recently sitting down with Alex Cooper. Take a listen.
Can you explain how the name calling and the slut shaming slowly started to chip away at the way you felt about yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think I can't say this for everybody who gets involved in a relationship with someone who's, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, but it's like, I think not everybody who has an affair feels this way, but I think a lot of people, especially young women who get involved in affairs, it already starts with a lack of self-esteem and self-worth. Mm. So I already had issues. It was this, it's kind of your worst nightmare of like all the worst things that you think about yourself and say to yourself, you then start to have reflected and amplified by the whole world. And so it was, if it hadn't been for my family continuing to remind me of my true self, and then eventually when I was able to have my friends come in, I don't think I would have been able to make it through.
Stunning, brave, all the right words there. Slut shaming someone for being a slut, which we shouldn't do, I guess. We should support it. And Monica Lewinsky very much is sounds like she's a victim in this story. And gratefully her family was there to get her through it. But like, who exactly is her family? Have we even thought about that? Is this a fair question to ask? I have questions. Monica Lewinsky, if you're watching this, I'd love to sit down with you because now I have a lot of questions. A little bit about her. Monica Lewinsky was born to a Lithuanian and German Jewish family. And she comes across very believable, which makes sense because she was a theater kid. As we're learning in politics, a lot of these people were theater kids. She loved theater. Loved her high school experience being involved in drama so much that after her high school graduation, she attended college, but then while she was in college, still opted to work in the drama department at Beverly Hills High School. And in 1992, she began an affair, not with President Clinton yet. She actually began her first affair with a married man. In 1992, she decided to begin an affair with her former high school drama instructor. So, I mean, she really liked the drama club, you know what I mean? And this affair was not short-lived, by the way. It went on for 5 years. So if I'm thinking of the timeline here, that definitely was going on at the same time that she was having an affair with Bill Clinton. She was also having an affair with this drama instructor. Now, interestingly enough, her mother was involved in a totally bonkers sexual scandal as well, pertaining to a random book. Her mother uses a pen name. She wrote a book about the three tenors. I'm not going to get too far into that, but suffice to say that when the Monica Lewinsky-Bill Clinton scandal broke, people then began realizing that her mom had written this weird book, a biographical book about the tenors, and it contained hints of an affair that was similar to the affair that her daughter was having with the President of the United States. So it got weird and it got wacky. And the editor said that they actually gutted portions of the book that were like strangely and explicitly sexual. Okay, whatever. What's interesting is the fact that despite Monica having a degree in psychology, which she achieved, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and a background in theater, she kind of mysteriously gets this job interning, not just interning at the White House, but interning for the chief of staff for the President of the United States. Now, I can tell you this. That chief of staff's name was Leon Panetta, and he would go on to become the director of the CIA and later the Secretary of Defense. And I can also assure you that you don't get those internships at that level unless you know somebody, pardon. And I know this because I know people who have gotten those internships. At that level, there's somebody's daughter, there's somebody's granddaughter, there's somebody who gave a ton of money to the campaign. That's who is packed that closely around the president. You don't just like write in, I applied to an internship at the White House and I randomly got it. And look, I'm working for like the number 3 most powerful person in the United States. It doesn't work like that, okay? It's all politics and nepotism. And kind of reflecting on our conversation there with the Call Her Daddy host, I am not sure if the narrative that she was like a nobody victim thereafter, thrown into obscurity, is entirely truthful, because she then, right after the affair happened, began designing handbags. Again, despite no background in fashion, despite having a degree in psychology, she has an affair with the President of the United States, and then she just starts just designing handbags. And I want to be clear, the bags are objectively not beautiful. And I can show you guys. I think it's not the most beautiful bag that I've ever seen. I'll tell you why that's important. Take a listen to this YouTuber who's kind of going backwards and reviewing her line of purses.
Monica quickly became kind of scorned and pariah in society after that, and actually had a lot of trouble kind of just existing. And now she does some anti-bullying campaigns and stuff like that. But she lived kind of in solitude for a while, and one of the things that she ended up doing when she was kind of outcast was starting to create her own line of handbags. Now, I always thought these were kind of funny at the time because they seemed just like a cash grab to me. It seemed like something that someone was doing at home and they were looking for a side hustle, and what do I have? What can I do? Oh, I can sew, I can buy fabric and sell some stuff online. So she created a line of bags called The Real Monica, and right here on the back of this one it says, "Made especially for you by Monica." I don't know how she knew she was going to make it for me, but she did, and that's the trademark.
Okay, so you see the bags, not the most beautiful bags I've ever seen, and it wasn't a hobby, because despite those bags looking, pretty tacky, they got picked up by arguably the most luxurious high-end retailer, Henry Bendel. Are you familiar with that name? I'm very familiar with it because I worked in fashion for a bit in New York, and I'm just going, literally, how? Like, that was a very, very high-end luxury department store. And they went to Monica and said, "These bags, amazing. We'll sell them. We'll sell them for you." And then she gets into Nordstrom. I mean, this is totally crazy. How is that possible that Henry Bendel picked up these bags? It's giving kind of Hand of Midas, if I'm being honest with you. And who was the Midas that picked up these bags? Oh, I know who it was. It was Les Wexner. Yeah, the guy who handed over his empire to Jeffrey Epstein, the Victoria's Secrets guy, who then owned L Brands. And under L Brands, under his stewardship, they owned Henry Bendel. So they were the ones that went to her and said, "We are going to pick up this bag and, put it in high-end, luxurious retail stores." So to recap here, Benjamin Netanyahu somehow got a hold of many sexual recordings between Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. He then uses those recordings to blackmail the president of the United States while negotiating. And then it turns out that the woman who was featured on those tapes, gets a job designing bags picked up by a luxurious store by a company that is being controlled really by Jeffrey Epstein, because it was being controlled by Jeffrey Epstein at that time. He handed over his keys to Jeffrey Epstein, who happened to be in the business of blackmailing politicians. Yeah, who was Maga, who had proximity to Bill Clinton. Now, a little bit more regarding Les Wexner. Like Jeffrey Epstein, his rise also shrouded in mystery, financial mystery, a few untimely deaths. In fact, there was this journalist, Robert Fitrakis, who was investigating Wexner, and he explained, quote, "When I reported on his connection with Jeffrey Epstein in the late 1990s, I received a letter from a certain skyhawk who simply wrote, 'Jeffrey Epstein equals toe tag.'" Yeah, toe tag. Put it on your toe. When you're dead, you will die if you investigate Jeffrey Epstein. Should I be concerned? Okay, let's just throw it to a couple of sponsors, and we'll jump back in and tell you a little bit more about Les Wexner. First, telling you guys about PreBorn, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am pro-life. That means I stand with mothers before the baby is born and also long after the baby is born. That's exactly why I partner with PreBorn, because it isn't out to judge women. They're making motherhood possible for them. They provide free ultrasounds. They share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And more importantly, they stay after the baby is born with real practical support by giving expecting mothers diapers, baby clothes, and even housing and financial help for up to 2 years after the baby is born, because that's what true Christ-centered compassion looks like. And here's how you can be a part of that. For just $28, you can give a mom a free ultrasound, one chance to see her baby. And when she does, she will become twice as likely to choose life. PreBorn is on a mission to save 70,000 babies this year. So don't just say that you're pro-life, live it. Donate now by calling 855-601-2229. Or you can go to preborn.com/Candace. Again, that's preborn.com/Candace. Also, reminding you guys about Masa Chips. Did you guys know that Masa Chips, pardon. Did you guys know that all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up until the 1990s? When big corporations switched to cheap processed seed oils. Today, seed oils make up to 20% of the average American's daily calories. And recent studies have linked seed oils to metabolic health issues and inflammation in the body. Masa decided to do something about that. They created a tasty and delicious tortilla chip with just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. These chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they taste incredible too. Team and I cannot get enough of them. We have them all over here. They have a bunch of different flavors. The spicy habanero chips, I love everything spicy. Those are hands down the ones that are my favorite. And a close second would probably be the original blue chips. Everybody loves original chips. You should try these ones because they're healthy. They're also crunchier, they're tastier, and they're sturdier than other chips because that's what happens when you use beef tallow. With Masa, you will feel satisfied, light, and energetic. There'll be no crash, bloat, or gross sluggish feeling afterward. The beef tallow makes the chips much more satiating, and you will not find yourself uncontrollably binging and still feeling hungry thereafter. Masa Chips is beloved by thousands of customers and has been endorsed by industry-leading health and nutrition experts. So if you're ready to give Masa a try, go to masachips.com/Candace and use code Candace for 25% off your first order. That's masachips.com/Candace and use code Candace and you'll get 20% off your first order. Okay, so beyond that, I got to tell you guys, the Les Wexner story is one that we've heard before, especially if you're in my book club and we start talking about like the weird stories everybody tells. It's like they establish a myth about themselves. On the East Coast, I would say the myth is always that you get this businessman that says, I just borrowed a couple of $1,000 from my dad or my aunt, and then I tripped and I fell into $1 billion empire. And that really is the story of Les Wexner. He borrowed $5,000 from his aunt, tripped and fell into a fashion empire. I'm not kidding. He was born on September 8th, 1937 in Dayton, Ohio. And this salesman, who apparently was running a small family clothing store, is said to have then built the limited brand, which then became L Brands, from just a tiny little store that he opened in 1963 with just $5,000 that he borrowed from his aunt. Okay, Les. He obviously is best known for his provocative Victoria's Secret, lingerie. And Epstein, we learned, used that lingerie brand to lure teenage girls. He was kind of falsely representing himself. He even kind of wanted to create this idea that they were somehow Victorian by falsely registering the company in London to match that Victorian era marketing after its 1982 acquisition from its founder, Roy Raymond. So they take this company from Roy Raymond and then they mint it in London. Now, I should tell you something about Roy Raymond, the actual true founder of Victoria's Secret, Roy Raymond, was found suicided. He was off of the Golden Gate Bridge, in 1993. And before he died, he said something interesting about Les Wexner. He said, quote, "When I met him, it was like I met the devil." Again, we will not be able to ask him why he felt that way because then he died off of the Golden Gate Bridge. And then Les Wexner, who he thought was the devil, took his company. Anyways, in 2008, another L Brands brand, which was known as La Senza, attracted a ton of attention because of its very odd advertising campaign, which featured the slogan, quote, "Why should only adults have all the fun?" Only adults? They shouldn't have all the fun. And what were they doing? They were promoting a line of lace thongs and bras for girls between the ages of 5 and 12. Another scandal that Leslie Wexner was involved in was when he was investigated by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security under human trafficking laws for its supplier of organic and fair trade cotton, which was coming from Burkina Faso. Now, to everyone's surprise, Les Wexner, who who was known as a lifelong bachelor, suddenly decided to get married when he was 55 years old. Not your average story, obviously. People tend to get married before then, but it happens. You can find love late, okay? Not throwing any shade here. But he chose to marry, which people thought was curious, a 35-year-old woman who was named Abigail Koppel. Now, Abigail Koppel was the head of the North American office of the Israeli airline El Al, okay, which was involved in a ton of Mossad operations from its very inception in 1949. And a source that worked with Abigail Koppel at Davis, Polk, and Wardwell said that they thought that Abigail Koppel was, quote, completely asexual. There was nothing feminine about her. So we assumed Wexner was gay and was getting married just to appease his mother, end quote. A second source would claim that Abigail was a lesbian and that the couple just had a business relationship. That was reported, by the way, by Kirby Summers in his book, Jeffrey Epstein, Predator Spy. According to the Wall Street Journal, it was Jeffrey Epstein who, in January of 1993, allegedly wrote the prenup agreement between the two, between Les Wexner and Abigail Koppel. So he was very, very involved with Les Wexner. How involved? Well, under oath, he was asked, rather mysteriously, Jeffrey Epstein was asked whether or not he had a sexual relationship with Les Wexner, whether or not he was a bisexual. That's interesting. And the next part I'm going to read directly from Xavier Poussard's forthcoming book regarding the Epstein scandal. Xavier Poussard reports, quote, many in Manhattan and London speculated about a romantic affair between Jeffrey and Les when in July of 1991, Les Wexner signed a power of attorney giving Epstein the authority to hire people, write checks, buy and sell properties, and borrow money in his name. It's worth noting that Les Wexner's alleged homosexuality is essentially part of his defense today. He claims to have cut ties in 2007 and in a half-hearted way plays the part of being the abused lover of Jeffrey Epstein, who allegedly embezzled $46 million of his fortune over the years. That's at least according to a statement from the Wexner Foundation, which was published in the summer of 2019. And in addition to the lawsuits he faces for child sexual abuse that occurred at the Manhattan mansion under the premises liability, Wexner's name also resurfaced in a sexual abuse scandal at Ohio University, where Les Wexner was chairing the board of trustees as a major benefactor. A group of plaintiffs turned to federal agents to examine the nature of their relationship with Dr. Richard Strauss, a physician in the athletics department at the university who had abused at least 177 male student patients between 1978 and 1998. So yeah, it's interesting to consider Les Wexner as a piece of this equation. It's kind of the only non-excuse they give us for why Jeffrey Epstein really had any money, why he trusted Epstein so much that he handed over his keys. Look, what we can say is there was a lot happening in 1997, 1998. You have the Mega Group being launched. You have Monica Lewinsky scandal happening that had broken in 1998, by the way. You have Jeffrey Epstein being handed the keys to the Wexner empire. And of course, in addition, there always has to be an untimely death. And there was an untimely death. A journalist named Danny Castellara, who happened to be investigating all of this. In fact, he said he was investigating, and I quote, an international cabal that involved a computer software, which was known as Inslaw, and the Iran-Contra affair. But before we could figure out what he was talking about, before he could hit publish on that investigation, Danny died of an accidental drowning. Again, timely. We're going to never know what he was speaking about, but there is probably a lot more I could tell you about that computer software program, and I will tell you about that. But it's a good place for us to stop today regarding Jeffrey Epstein because it is just shocking. It makes you go, okay. Okay, are we being a little too harsh on President Trump by demanding the Epstein files? For those of us who aren't even certain whether or not Epstein is dead, and the more you learn about the Epstein scandal and what we know about Bibi Netanyahu, and what he's doing and feeling nothing to Palestinian, like, is Trump just terrified for his life? Did he have no idea what he was getting into when he decided he wanted to be the president of the United States? Did he have no idea? Was there no warning given to him by Bill Clinton, like, hey, I'm not so sure you have any power, and you better be very careful as to what interns are being hired and what their connections are? Did Donald Trump make the mistake that all of us made growing up, believing that we lived in a republic, a democracy, believing that we voted politicians that had real power, having no idea that there was this invisible hand that just keeps getting caught in blackmail scandals and then looking us in the face and being like, nope, nothing to see here. Keep moving, you little anti-Semite. You just keep on moving, you little anti-Semite. By the way, as we predicted, Trump, they kind of made some noise and said, oh, we're going to demand, Pam Bondi, we're going to demand that New York unseals the grand jury testimony. We told you that that was obviously a nothing burger. The grand jury testimony in Ghislaine Maxwell's case, the federal judge has come out and said the same thing. He said, nope, this motion is an absolute nonsense. This motion to unseal the grand jury testimony from the criminal case pertaining to Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know why Trump asked for this. He wrote a 31-page opinion, the presiding judge in this matter, and he was pretty harsh about Trump. He basically said that even asking for this is completely ridiculous, that their reasoning for it is demonstrably false, and that Trump knew this. He knew that the transcripts would not reveal any new information of any consequence about Epstein and Maxwell's crimes. And he suggested that the Trump administration only pushed to release those documents as a form of diversion. Like, oh, we're doing something, but we're not doing something. And that's what we said, right? We told you guys that that's exactly what was happening, that this entire premise was just to hope that we moved on from it. Again, I'll ask the question, do you think that we are being too harsh in this matter and that Trump is terrified? Looking at you guys, seeing what you think, I can tell you what I think. I think he is terrified. I think he's terrified for his life. I really do. I partially terrified for his life, and partially also, he's obviously, his family is very involved. Very involved with Bibi Netanyahu. And I don't think Jared Kushner is the kind of guy that's going to stand up to Bibi Netanyahu. He's working with Israel and their technology, if that's what we're calling it. I mean, with allies like these, who needs enemies, right? Anyways, Thomas Massie is still pushing. He's been very brave. He's tweeted that he is going to be hosting a press conference at the Capitol. He's going to be joined by survivors of Epstein and Maxwell's abuse, several of whom are going to be speaking out for the very first time. He's saying that the survivors deserve justice and the Americans deserve transparency. And of course, he is correct. He's absolutely correct. Lastly, you guys, before we get to some of your comments, I got to tell you about this absolutely hilarious story. Speaking of just foreign states that are trying to intimidate people, I have no idea what game or if this involves them. Maybe it doesn't involve them, but the Macrons are playing in the press. But yesterday, a tweet had gone semi-viral. I mean, it had almost 1,000 retweets, and it was being pushed by this totally deranged human being named Nathan Livingston. And he's just, I mean, deranged, obsessed with me. I don't know this person, trying to tether me to Andrew Tate. I have no idea why. But he did an expose because, you know, we said to you guys that we got an estimate, and truthfully, we were told that it was going to cost $5 million if this court case goes through with Emmanuel Macron. We don't have that money. We simply do not have that kind of money. We don't. It's not due today, but you get the point. And so he did an expose, which was the Zionists were all passing around, saying that I lied. I lied to you guys and that they had discovered my secret wealth. And I was very excited about this. I wanted this to be true so bad. Never in my life did I not want to debunk something about myself, because deep down, I do want to randomly find out that I'm a secret wealthy princess. That never goes away. It never dies. After you watch the Princess Diaries, it never dies. Okay? It never dies inside of you. You just hope that you will be the Princess of Geneva. And he presents this tweet. He actually went in and did a whole video. Okay, he did a video and he branded it with his investigation and explained that always George. They always say that it's George, my husband, who has this wealth. And this was the headline that he was pulling from. I got to show you the breakdown of my alleged wealth. He shared this, and Skylar, do you have just the screenshot, the screen cap of my wealth? Let me see it. Let's pull that up. The homes that I own. Here's his video. Candace is shilling for t-shirts to raise funds for the Macron lawsuit, but here's the breakdown. I have a 7,200 square foot Malibu estate that is worth $5.5 million. A Colorado farm, that sounds lovely. That's 8,000 square feet. That's worth $3.2 million. A Nashville home that's worth $8 million. An Austin mansion that's worth $7 million. A Stamford home, because got to visit my parents, that's worth $6 million. A Miami commercial property that's worth $2.7 million. And a Nebraska farmland that's worth 90 acres. I mean, that's worth $1.8 million. And that farmland in Nebraska is 90 acres. And that's not it, because I'm international. Also, I have a London mansion. It's 12 bedrooms and it's $19.5 million. By the way, if you know anything about London, that's a steal. Like wow, that's a huge property in London, $19.5 million. And then he says that I have 10 additional properties in the UK, France, Morocco for no reason at all, Belgium, spelled wrong, because it's in Belguim. Yeah, that's right. You see, I have a property in Belguim, not Belgium. It's in Belguim. You may have not been there. And lastly, in Germany. So, I mean, I am just, he shared this dead seriously. And people were sharing it like it was an expose. And nobody, at no point did these people go, Candace had more properties than Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I don't even know billionaires that have that many properties. That just sounds like too much to manage. Like, at the end of the day, you got to manage these properties. Royals don't have as many properties. Nothing stopped him. Didn't think it was weird. Didn't think to check like how that information came about. And apparently he said he pulled it from this website, which no one's ever heard of, called This Trading Life. And it has a picture of my husband. They just make my husband richer every year. And I'm prone to conspiracy. So I was like, is he lying? Do we have a random real estate empire? I thought we only have this one house. Like, why am I doing this podcast from my basement? If we have all, I was a little bit angry, a little bit excited about George Farmer's wealth, which I'm telling you goes up by 200 million every year. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. He thought it was hilarious. He was sending it around to his friends. And then I obviously made fun of this. I was like, wow, I don't even know what kind of misinformation this is, but I really don't want to debunk this. But unfortunately, I only have one house. It's here and it's in Tennessee, and we don't have $5 million laying around to spend on a lawsuit. So I was telling the truth. And eventually he removes the video, but not without kind of insulting me. Like, he made this up and made this whole video, but said, I removed the video I previously posted estimating Candace Owens. Estimating? Is that an estimate? It's a fairy tale. Candace Owens and her husband's net worth and their real estate portfolio. New information has convinced me that the content was based on inaccurate data. I'm committed to accountability and ensuring that I don't spread false information. The opposite of what Candace Owens does. I'll make sure I do better, thoroughly verifying the information that's being put out. Yeah, so he vetted it so hardcore that he pulled it from a parody account. It was a parody account that shared it and just was making up stuff for funsies. This guy took it seriously, spent hours of his life editing a video. And I'm just over here wishing that someone would give me this actually not really, it really does sound like a headache. I don't want that many houses, but like in a perfect scenario, like one day I would love to have a house in the mountains. So if you're watching, I don't know, Hand of Midas people, Rothschilds, Les Wexner, whatever is going, if you could maybe just a house in the mountains, and then I'm good. I don't want too much more than that. I don't ask for much here. Anyways, you guys, before I get into some of your comments, I want to remind you about the Wellness Company, because if you've ever checked the ingredients in your toothpaste, you may have noticed a lot. Most toothpastes on the market are filled with harsh chemicals and additives like sulfates and titanium dioxide, which can pose risks with long-term use. You use them every day hoping for a healthier smile, but you end up with actually irritated gums, sensitive teeth, and sketchy chemicals. It is totally time to swap the chemicals out for peptides. Introducing Smile Peptide Toothpaste from the Wellness Company. It's a breakthrough peptide paste designed to help reverse gum loss through mouth regeneration. Smile is formulated with active ingredients to help you strengthen, remineralize, and whiten teeth, as well as support gum regrowth. So if you are ready to build a truly healthy mouth while staying fluoride-free, which is important, then head over to twc.health/Candace and use code Candace, and you'll get 15% off plus free shipping. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow at twc.health/Candace and use code Candace. Also reminding you guys about American financing, because there are costs that are rising on everything: gas, groceries, home repairs. If you're a homeowner, you've probably thought maybe I should call American Financing and refinance and pay off this credit card debt. And then maybe you second guessed yourself because you're enjoying a low mortgage rate. But the reality is that low rate that you're enjoying, you're actually not saving any money if you're drowning in credit card interest at 25% or more. That is the math that most people do not want to face, but it is costing you thousands. Here's the truth. If you're only making minimum payments, that debt is going to follow you around for years. That's why people are calling American Financing, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month by using their equity to finally break free from credit card debt. You owe it to your family to see what you could be saving. There's no upfront fees. There's no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save every month. And if you start today, you might be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So call American Financing today. The number is 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or you can just visit americanfinancing.net/Candace. I'm sorry, americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, you guys, let's get into some of your comments. I want to remind you guys that are signed up for a Shot in the Dark that we just dropped another Shot in the Dark episode. This time it is regarding the IUD. Crazy. The history of the IUD, for no reason at all, involves Nazis. And for no reason at all, it involves importing people and doctors from Germany and Margaret Sanger. Yeah, you gotta check that out. Learn about the copper IUD, the tragic history of the copper IUD, ladies. Very important, because I know a lot of women use the copper IUD because we believe our doctors are not trying to harm us, and they would maybe reasonably look into the history so you wouldn't have to come to Candace Owens for the history of the IUD. But that is not the case, because people like to make money, and that's what the Big Pharma is all about. Give us money, and we will sell it to patients that are unwitting. Okay, let's see. Getting into some of your comments. Who do we have up first? Will Wallace, $100. Will, thank you so much. He writes, hottest channel on YouTube. Let's go. It's why I love Candace. While the haters hate, she comes with receipts, names, references, times, and places. They say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Wake up, people. I love that. I totally agree with you that people have to wake up. We're giving you all the information. We actually aren't relying on a random trading website. We try to research as much as possible. We're not perfect, but we are making an attempt, and we spend a lot of time researching every single day. Miss Mary Mack writes, J.D. Vance is the Woodrow Wilson of our time. Never Vance. We actually covered J.D. Vance right when he became the vice president, or when Trump announced that he wanted him to be VP. Mark was instantly like, you got to look into this guy. He's got an interesting background. I try to hold off on fully judging someone until I meet them. I think I raise suspicions about his background, but until you can sit down and ask questions, we probably shouldn't put together an entire picture. And I have said I would sit down with J.D. Vance in a heartbeat. He comes across very well. He is a fellow Catholic. But I definitely have some questions about, how he got his Netflix deal and things of that nature. You can go back and find that episode. I think it was maybe right when it was announced that he was going to be the vice presidential candidate. Maybe it was a couple of episodes after. Endless Love writes, Germany is always here listening too. Since you talked about Sigmund Freud, would you consider looking into the history of ADHD too? Is it even real? The medication for kids is similar to cocaine, according to some sources. It's more like meth. And yeah, getting kids on methamphetamines when they're really young, we should definitely probably explore that. All of these child diagnoses. Honestly, the craziest part of that, saying your child is not paying attention in school, is not sitting still. Your 5-year-old child is not sitting still, so he's got attention deficit hyper disorder. Is that like a fancy word for he's a 5-year-old? I don't understand. You know how much energy boys have? It is crazy. I used to nanny for a family, and she had her son, he was 6 years old, the mother. She had her son on Adderall, a form of Adderall. And it was because she said that he wasn't sitting still at school. I was just like, wow, that is, I think, what 6-year-old boys do have trouble with sitting. Maybe it's unnatural to have them sitting for hours in school. I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. Do not trust me. Trust the science instead. EH writes, Candace, you owe nothing to Nick fans who show up here every day and pretend to do something. I don't mind Nick, but he attracts the worst of the worst fan base. Nick could learn from you about what it means to have class. Couldn't care less. Honestly, what's amazing about them is that they're here every day. They're watching the show. And whether they realize, Kanye said, love your fans, love your haters, are your biggest fans. And that is an absolute fact. And it's lame. It's so botted, right? To like all day just be like, I just don't care. Especially after yesterday, the amount of lies that were told offered the platform back to clear them up. this whole idea that I'm an op working for Russia. It's so nutty and crazy and dishonorable for any person who has been welcomed into your home, who you were kind to do what he is doing. It's totally theatrical. And I obviously have nothing to hide. Like, I will always survive a daylight test. So like I said, welcome back here anytime. Marzi writes, hey, Candace, interview Sonia Poulton if you want to look at the Epstein files from the UK point of view. She looked into Prince Andrew and Jimmy Savile. It's a scary deep dive. I hope the children are well. You work hard and we thank you for it. Children are doing great. I'm very blessed with a beautiful family, a healthy family. And yeah, it's a lot of research and you don't want to make any mistakes, because a lot of people that were researching why these series take such a long time is because the people that were researching are still alive, and you can see that they'll wait for you to make a mistake and then try to sue you. So you got to fact check, look into everything. So I'm fact checking the fact checks and working with Xavier Poussard, who has really been dedicating his life to the Epstein story the last 10 years at least. This and the Brigitte Macron story have been running side by side when he had his publication Fait et Documents. And so it's a lot. But it's worth it, because I think we are all kind of waking up to the fact that there's just kind of this invisible society that runs around our society, which kind of makes us slaves. Like, if they know that their children are quote unquote chosen and they don't have to do anything, they're just going to kind of make a fake resume for them and put them at the top of all of these companies, and we're going to work for them. Like, we are the employees. It's very scary to kind of consider the matrix and to realize that, as they always like to tip their hand, whether it's in a book or a movie, they're like laughing at us and they want us to know we are totally in control and everything around you is actually fake and probably gay. And that's what it seems like. Anyways, this last person writes, I love the name here, My Sweet Muffin. God bless you, Candace. We wish you all the wealth and real estate that you can manage. May God Almighty protect you and your family. You are opening the eyes of countless conservatives. Thank you for that. Oh, somebody gave $100 to insult me. This I would like to encourage every day. Whoever this unknown person, the handle is unknown, that gave $100 to say Nick Fuentes crushed you. You are welcome back. I actually think you should be here every day and write that comment for $100. I will read that comment every day as long as you give $100. Amazing. Anyways, you guys, I will see you tomorrow. We are going to have a shortened week this week because it is me and my husband's anniversary. And so we are going to spend a little time on, not far away, but we'll be in the neighborhood. Excited about that. Just a couple of days to ourselves. We will see you tomorrow.